Right, thank you very much, everyone, for coming in. My name is Ammar Shar, and I'm the founder of Staygate, which is just another serviced accommodation operator in London. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be part of Zeevoo team, and I unfortunately had to part way a year ago. But as you can tell, we're still on very good terms, and I'm absolutely in love with Zeevoo. This is why I joined today. The subject of today's session is very interesting. We're going to be discussing damage protection and guest experience. I have interesting speakers today. I'm introducing Leo Walton from Superhog. Leo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Deborah Labby of the Guest Inspector. Deborah, thank you.
Pleasure.
And Carlos Lascaux from Room Monitor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me too.
Thank you for being with us. All right, so business excellence in the short-term rental, as we all know, relies heavily on the guest experience. The focus you dedicate to leaving a lasting and pleasant impression on your guests is a game changer. Property managers and vacation rental hosts are looking out every day for tips to provide a better guest experience. This is basically where we get our repeated business from. It's all reflecting in the reviews, and the reviews is reflecting on the repeated business, and the repeated business is reflecting on the overall revenue. And the revenue is reflected on the finances. With that being said, I'm going to start ahead with the questions. We're trying to kick off the discussion with you, Deborah, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define the ideal guest experience?
Okay, I think everyone needs to remember that the guest experience, doesn't start at the booking confirmation. The guest experience actually starts as soon as they land on the website. So landing on the website, the search, the query, response time, the booking process, the guest experience, the ideal guest experience is one that is smooth and clear. There's no hiccups, there's no head scratching. It's where the guest has no questions at all because it's all been thought through. So it's all streamlined and the guest feels cared for, then everything is smooth and clear. That's the ideal guest experience.
100%. I think it's a very nice answer. It does start indeed with the very initial contact made by the guest.
Yeah.
I agree. And speakers, please, if any of you want to jump in on any of the questions moving forward, please feel free. Just let me know.
Sure. I mean, I think Deborah's answered it really, hasn't she? That in the most important, I think as a property manager and an accommodation provider, you're constantly trying to balance the wishes of your supplier, so your host, versus the needs of your guest, and you often can find yourself in the middle of that whole thing. But when it comes to guest experience, it's vitally important to make sure that their expectations are met from the minute they land on your system after they've made their booking through the OTA, or the minute they land on your own website because they made a direct booking. You have to start that courtship, don't you? And as a consequence, if you do that well, you sort of hinted at it in your introduction, that is what's going to lead to repeat bookings, direct bookings, and more of a sort of profile for your business. And I think that it's one of the trends around the industry that I'm noticing a lot is this fixation on the kind of the guest portal, I suppose I want to call it. And there's lots of business doing it, but like when you get that guest in your environment, when's the right time to upsell? What can you ask them to do? And how can you make sure that they're safe and they know what they're doing with their booking?
Mind you, this guest portal is basically replacing the good old book that you found in apartments, or the welcome pack, they call it. And it's also all about communication, isn't it? Because you would want to communicate all these the house rules and how to get in, how to get out, how to do this and that, which also frustrates guests when you don't tell them, you leave them clueless.
I was about to make that point. I think that transparency and very good communication are key to ensure good guest experience, because in the end, it's all about the expectations that they have from the moment they book to the moment they do the check-in, right? So it's all about managing those expectations. And I remember back in the days when people were trying to put like very beautiful photos, but then those photos were not looking as the reality. I think the industry has become more mature, and we are all doing an exercise to make sure that what you see on the listing page when you're trying to book is what you really get. And this is the only way to ensure that in the end, prior to the check-in, the experience is already good, and then you move from there, trying to be the best host that as you can.
And one of our speakers last year at the Book Direct show, he used this great example. And I can't remember all the details, but it boiled down to, if you go to a concert and you love the concert, the music is being great, but right at the end, someone plays a wrong note, you're going to remember the wrong note. You know, that's going to be the thing that sticks with you. So you stuff up one thing along the line, they're going to remember that, even though everything else was great. So everything has to be smooth for them to go, wow, that was a great experience. One hiccup and they'll remember that.
100%. They probably much more than remember that. They probably ask for a refund somewhere.
That's what's happening these days. Jeez.
Isn't that what makes our industry challenging and beautiful all at the same time, right? You're trying to deliver service remotely to properties that might be spread 150, 200 miles apart in some cases, or even if they are 10 minutes around the corner, right? It's so easy. It's so much easier for a hotel to delight people and also rectify mistakes. And I think it's incredibly challenging. What a fun but incredibly challenging industry it is.
I know, but you know what? I was going to talk about this a little bit later on, but one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is to personalize it, to connect with the guest. So if we connect with them and we play that bad note, we can go, oops, you know, and they'll go, oh, no problem. We all make mistakes, and it might smooth over. So
yeah, which is Deborah, just to cut you off here, you just answered, I think you just answered the next question that I had for you, which is, how can hosts guarantee an excellent guest review?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. Personalization and connection. And it starts with the guest journey, but it also starts with video. Now, video is a great medium to establish a connection with your guest. So two places, quick places you could stick a video. One of them is the About Us page. Explain who you are, how you got into the industry, what's the story, how did you end up in the industry, in the business. And the other one is, this is something that I started about 5 years ago. And with the booking confirmation email, they got a link to a video that I had recorded. Hi, I'm Deborah. Thanks for your booking. And then I was explaining the process, blah, blah, blah. Security deposits get paid here. 1 week prior, you get your arrival instructions. And two things about that. And then I'd finish off, and I'm always here to answer any questions you have. So every time they got an email from Deborah, they had a face. They knew who was responding to the email. The second benefit of this was that that video was on a page on my website. So when they went to watch it, they sat on my website for a minute, and Google likes that. So video connecting, they knew who Deborah was, they could ask questions. So that's a great way to establish a connection. And if you've got time, personalize it, because I also had a video from someone in the industry, and it was a message, and I thought it was just standard video, and they said, hi, Deborah, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, is that talking to me? And I was astounded by how that felt. So if you do have time to say, thanks, Wendy, for your booking, it'll blow them out of the water. They'll never forget it. Anyway, other ways to do it is just to be thoughtful, be generous. You know, we've gone with the days of 2 rolls of toilet paper in each bathroom. You know, be generous. Put the toilet paper, put boxes of tissues out, cling film, make it a home. You know, it's just that kind of feeling that they can just walk into their home away from home. That's going to give them a good review. Your personalization, yeah.
Couldn't agree more with you, Deborah, because sometimes when you reach an apartment and you see that there's not even those basic things, and for the cost that they have, it's like, okay, this is not what I was expecting, and it was not that hard to solve. I think also it's a matter of trust. What you are saying is it's summarized in building trust prior to the check-in, and then making sure that they know they can reach out to you and you will be there. I think that's the key.
And that's showing that you care, you know, by being there and answering any question, doesn't matter how silly, you care and you're there for them. Yeah.
100%. I agree. Okay, moving on to Leo, did you want to say yes?
I think they said it all.
No, okay. I thought I heard you speak up. Okay. Can you name some mistakes that hosts must avoid to fulfill such purposes?
Well, first of all, just check all your buttons on your website are working. Check your response time. You know, if I want to know if there's a lift in the building, I want an answer straight away. I don't want to wait 24 hours. Keep me part of the booking process. Keep me on your website. Pre-arrival emails, too many? Am I getting bombarded? Too few? Who did I book with again? Is my booking safe? So things like that. Are there too many steps in the whole process? You know, things like that. Now, also one of the big things is the arrival, right? So you're landing in a foreign city, you don't know where to go, blah, blah, blah. It's a new place. So what are the obstacles for check-in? Like you've landed in a foreign place. How do I get to the property? How clear are those directions? How clear is the lockbox instruction? How clear is, am I meeting someone? What if I'm running late? What do I do then? Things like that. So there are a number of things you can avoid, but again, it's just all about keeping it smooth. And one of the things that I was thinking of was, you know, basically you should get your mum to do a booking on your website and go and stay and see what your mum's going to say about it. All the things what's the feedback she's going to do? She's going to give you. Yeah. Booking, arrival instructions, getting there. Yeah.
I've always said we always take the guest's knowledge and experience in such stays for granted. The simplest things that I've come across, just as simple as the key lock box, for example, not mentioning that you have to pull that black piece downwards to open the face of the box. A lot of people I came across, you just put the code in the box and they expect the door to open. It's a lock box. It's there. It's very simple. You can see, you can tell that that the key is inside, but a lot of people don't get it. They think when you just send the code, they think they put the code and the door opens. This happened quite a few times with me. So 100% just details and not to bore them, but to be very clear on what, you know, what's the steps to be taken in order to access.
And this is also where you can use video again. You know, all your 100%. Instructions, you can do video again. Yeah, that you're looking after them to make sure that their whole journey is pretty smooth. You know, no one wants to be reading stuff anymore. It's all about videoing and seeing things. So show me how that lockbox works. You know, if you're having trouble, press the C. Clear. Do it again. I mean, we have to take into account that some people are tech savvy and some people aren't. This is why I said, send your mom, send your grandma. See, if they can get through it, then that's great.
Great stuff. We must also remember that property managers, just as mentioned a bit ago by Leo, basically are running a bilateral business. Your business survives in the competitive market only if you work on the improvement of both the guest experience and the host experience in parallel, or the landlords. Although hosts start planning a perfect accommodation once a guest books their rental, they begin to feel concerned about certain issues, especially if you're managing for a landlord. They don't know who their guests are, what to expect, what are they up to, whether they can trust them or not, and whether they're going to cause any damage to the property, physically or ethically. So this is quite a challenge, especially that, yes, we brag about taking deposits, but well, in realistic terms, what would the deposit really cover? Like most of the operators charge what, 250, 100 pounds, 150. I've seen 250, 350 max, and then people will start complaining. That won't cover anything if the real damage happened in your property. So they are legitimate concerns, of course. Carlos, can you tell us about rental property owners precautions to prevent potential damages to their houses?
Yeah, before I jump into the answering that question, I just want I completely agree with what you said in the end. If you listen the Airbnb guys, the founders, they always said that they built this business out of trust, right? This is the two-sided marketplace. We have hosts, we have guests, and the experience is also good. Is only good if it's good for both sides. So we've covered the guest side. On the host side, of course, there are concerns, especially if you're managing the property for another person. I think that they try to do as much as they can in order to make sure that the guest experience is good, and at the same time that they protect their properties. And when we say damages and protection, it's not just about physical damages, but also is about the long-term sustainability of the relationship of that short-term rental within the community of neighbors there where they coexist. I think hosts, do a good effort with guest screening tools, or trying to understand which type of guests are going to come to the apartment. At least from what I talk with many property managers, they already know which kind of group, which kind of listings are more eager to be conflictive or not, and they kind of try to put very clear house rules on the descriptions and make sure that everything is crystal clear. But besides that, there's also true that there are tools and technology that can help you support that, like noise monitoring in our case. I think that the combination on trying to learn as much as you can prior to the booking, prior to the arrival, letting guests know and making sure that booking experience will match what the apartment is designed for. And then also making sure that during the stay you have tools that can help you anticipate potential damages. Those are very, very good things to do. For example, if you know that there's a group of people coming from a bachelor party, you can either let them know which are the house rules and how they need to behave, etc., or be very strict, right? You need to learn prior to that booking what's going on, and making sure that you have tools there to learn how things are going, not only in terms of damage with the property, but also damage with the neighborhoods where you are operating that apartment or that property.
100%. The next question, I don't know if we have got anyone who's new to the business. We really don't want to scare you off. But it's a question on the list of questions. It's what are potential damages to vacation rental properties based on real accounts? Now, I'm not gonna share because I don't want to scare people off.
No, I think we all know. We've seen that on the press. I mean, when Airbnb added the 1 million security insurance back, security insurance, the insurance back in the days, it was because there was a big disaster in one apartment in the US, right? I think that those are rare cases. That's the first thing that we need to say. Those are rare cases, but damages can happen, and you need to be covered. And sometimes, of course, you can have like an apartment completely trashed by a group that should have never booked that listing. Those things are happening less and less based on our data, and I think that this is because the system is also providing the companies, the OTAs, the platforms. They've done like a big effort on other companies to put technology to really provide a better understanding on the guest behavior or guest profile. So that's one. And then so things are getting better. But I think that you can imagine complete destroyed listings that can happen. But I also want to make a point on the, again, as I said, on the impact on the community, on the neighborhood. Many times we see that it's not like a physical damage of breaking a chair or breaking lots of things on the apartment, but just being like so loud all the time or so bad neighbors for the local citizens on the apartment, that in the end you're making a damage for the long-term sustainability on the business. And I think that was in the past not not really taken care of. But now hosts are more and more aware that if we want to push for a long sustainability of this industry, we need to kind of invest on that side. Our founders created this company because at some point they were about to lose the licenses that they had here in Barcelona of 2 buildings because of neighbor complaints. And because of that, they created this noise monitoring solution that helped them prevent and anticipate. I think this kind of trend is what we will continue to see in the future.
I'm just going to add that when I first started in the business, I always knew that guests were the #1 priority. They're the #1. But I always thought that the neighbors were #2. And really, you know, when Airbnb came along and they never, ever, ever mentioned neighbors, all of these new people to the industry, the host came on board, they never, you know, they weren't educated in, you've got to look after the neighbors too. So I think this whole explosion of legislation and everything it started off with grumpy neighbors. So
and I agree, and I think I've been in the industry since 2012, and that was I was first working at One Fine Stay, and we had the Westminster Council regulation that then extended to London regulation, 90 days, and it all came out of an explosion around the 2012 Olympics, where lots of unregulated short letting happened, and they didn't like it. So clearly, it's in no one's interest if our industry is seen as the place for criminal bookings, where people are going and renting properties and doing awful things in them, party bookings, or even stag do's. You know, like Carlos mentioned, the stag do, they should be in a hostel. You know, like, or they should be somewhere more appropriate. They shouldn't be in somebody's house. And again, that's why I go back to the point I've made at the start. You as professional property managers, trying to do as much as you can, you're constantly balancing how to look after your hosts or your own properties if they're your own, and your guests. And it is a constant challenge, because you don't want that one stag do to sneak through in a building where there's some people that are noise sensitive, and you know it's hard for that building to ever recover and say yes to short lets, isn't it? And then none of us succeed, which is why I think what Carlos and his business Room Monitor are doing is fantastic, because it's closing down the parties quicker, you know, and all that stuff is obviously great, and will be what allows all of our businesses to grow and scale, because ultimately, if the regulation is too draconian, then we don't have an industry.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Sorry to be pessimistic. I sounded very pessimistic. I am optimistic, but on that point, I am pessimistic.
No, but we do. We all have a part in making sure that this industry, you know, like at the moment, I think that this industry has got it doesn't have a bad name, but it's got a bruised name. You know, when people say Airbnb, they think, oh yeah, Airbnb, this great woo-woo company. But other people think troublemakers, you know, the party houses. And, you know, this is not what this industry is about. So, you know, we all are part of this bruised industry, and we all have to be part of making sure that our name is clear. Because, you know, it's been around a lot longer than Airbnb. But we've had these problems before.
Agreed. Yeah.
But that's why I think that one trend that we are seeing is that host property managers, or even the short-term rental associations are trying to be more proactive than reactive now that in the past. Now they understand that this is a threat, and they are trying to self-regulate, right? To anticipate issues, to improve relationship with neighbors. And that's why we pitch for this long-term sustainability, because in the end we all want this to be like a business that is integrated in the cities, that has a very it's seen as it needs to be seen, which is a very, very successful industry, that it's providing a lot of income, not only to the host, but also to all the local economy. I mean, look just at the trends of the post-COVID recovery. Who is the industry, the segment that is growing faster? Is the short-term rentals. It's growing much faster than the other categories. So if you want to pitch for that and to support that, we need to make sure that we are responsible on the way we operate.
100%.
Our data, Carlos, would suggest that our data industry-wide would suggest about 2% of bookings end up with some sort of damage in them. Could be minor, could be major. 2%.
Yeah.
You know, we can't let the 2% ruin the 98%.
No, that's not much, is it?
It's that bad note at the end. That's the 2%. It's the bad note at the end.
Yeah, 100%. But I truly think, and I agree with what you guys just mentioned, the industry is evolving. we as hosts are coming together and we're understanding more and more how to prevent guests and how to be proactive, as Carlos just said. One of the nice things that I've been part of recently was a WhatsApp group that they basically, in one of the areas that we operate in, the hosts came together and made a WhatsApp group just to share a list of names, troublemakers that they've hosted. And the list keeps growing every other week, and they keep updating the list and sending it on the WhatsApp group. Well, it's an outdated method, 100%, but it helps. And I think it's really, really nice that the hosts came together to protect one another rather than to compete. This was really, really nice and helpful at times. In that direction, what are other common approaches hosts should adopt to prevent damage and increase protection, if I may, Carlos?
Well, I think we've already covered that. I think it's just a matter of anticipating, and tools like, I think Leo will explain it later, but anticipating the type of guest that you are going to have, etc.
The problem, if I may to cut you off there, the problem is we're looking at different platforms, right? So if you get a booking from Airbnb, chances are you're much more comfortable towards it, because whatever happens, right, you're covered. You can start a claim, and you're mostly covered for whatever can happen. But if a booking comes through another platform, say Booking.com or Expedia, whatever, namely Booking.com, you're not covered. You're just covered with the amount of money that you charge. And the thing is, on Airbnb, you also get to see the reviews of the guests. Some guests are new with no reviews, so that's not helpful. But still, you're covered. On Booking.com, on the other hand, you don't get to see nothing about your guest. So it's why a lot of people are worried. And I feel that these questions, they might bore you because we're repeating ourselves, maybe. But I do think that these questions are very important to be answered, as they are the number one concern, as you all know, with landlords, especially when you're approaching a new landlord, new to this, and you're saying, I'm doing the short-term rentals. He'll go, oh, Airbnb. No, mate. Okay, why? So, but that being said, we did evolve, and our name is now much better than before. But it is a valid question still. So Leo, do you want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I think as Carlos sort of hinted at, maybe I'll be able to. I suppose I can talk to you. I can talk of the techniques that we would say are useful to use. Obviously, my business Superhog, which some of you, I'm sure, there's some faces and names around the room that I recognize. You'll know the first thing I'm going to say you should do is you should be using screening software to screen your guests.
100%.
But let me say, with a huge asterisk next to it, being fixated on creating a very seamless and positive guest experience, because 2% of bookings end up in damage. Of those 2% of bookings, it's mostly accidental damage, which means that 0.1% of guests is potentially fraudulent or bad or criminal. So you've really got to look after, you've got to create a system that works for the other 99.9%, right? You have to create this, and Deborah said it actually, I think Deborah said it perfectly about creating videos, creating a personalized experience, a professional experience. But then when they're in your window of booking, you then need to work out who they are. And that's the fundamental thing you can do to protect your properties, is make sure that they aren't a fraudulent guest or a criminal guest or someone doing anything. And the best way to do that is to screen for it. But just make sure you do it in a positive way. And then ultimately you need to have protection on the back end as well, which is another thing that Superhog will do. I don't want to sales pitch you guys, of course, and just talk about Superhog, but
we're coming to that. We're coming to that in a minute.
Yeah. But it's really about making sure that you're doing more than the absolute basics. So if you're using an OTA that provides you less protection, then you're upping the level of due diligence that you do. And there's other things you can do. So I hate to have to say this, because I wish it wasn't the case, but some properties maybe need a 3-night minimum. I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to see what Deborah thinks about that, as someone that actually does more of the management of property. But I kind of feel like some pads just just look and feel and look and seem like they're party places. So, you know, put a bit of a minimum on them, or, you know, if you're really concerned, do a face-to-face check-in. And none of these things are perfect, but it's all about, in my opinion, creating planting little flags to make sure that you're reducing the risk, right? You know, you're doing risk reductions, and, you know, ultimately you don't have to put every single property on every single OTA. I'm probably saying things that are really, really obvious here, but if you have got a party property, you might only want to put that on Airbnb or on one you feel particularly safe about.
I wouldn't actually rely on Airbnb for insurance. Sorry, that my opinion is I'm not relying on Airbnb for insurance. I still took security deposits from people from Airbnb and you know, did all that sort of thing, and we are allowed to do that. So that's what I did, because I needed my own policy, I needed my own insurance. But I think one of the things in terms of the guest verification, I think, you know, maybe deterrence is good too. So the thing is, if they are planning on having a party and they know that they're going to have to go through guest verification and ID, that might deter them from having the party at your place in the first place. So that's a very good first step to making sure that it might not happen. And then having some sort of, you know, insurance policy, security. So security deposit is a fixed price. And as we all know, it's never enough. If there's going to be big damage, it's never enough. So you do want to sort of go down the insurance route, and rather than relying on Airbnb insurance, where you've really got to beg and plead, there are other ways to insure your property. Leo can mention a bit about that. But I think deterring them from just with the guest ID, with the ID verification, there's the first step that might, you know, get rid of some of the party goers.
And just to add on top of that, before Leo jumps into explaining more about the insurance, now Airbnb allows to kind of click and select that you have a noise monitoring device on your listing. So by doing that, you're automatically trying to get rid of those guys that don't want to behave properly, right? So it's being open that you have these tools that are completely privacy safe. They don't record anything, but they allow to understand what's going on in terms of noise sound levels. It's preventing the bad guys to book that listing. So that's another way. And then I think that Leo, what Leo was about to explain about the insurance, it's also really, really, really good.
Yeah, I think you're right, Carlos. And I would just add to that point that our understanding of noise boxes, which is growing significantly, is that we can actually offer a customer a better price because they are so effective at closing things down quickly. Like it really works, right? It's one of those things. It's spending a penny up front to save yourself £1 later down the line, right? And all that sort of stuff. But it's about creating the strategy that works for you. You know, if your properties are in rural coastal areas of the UK, you're maybe not concerned about Airbnb parties, but you know, there might be fraud or chargebacks that are an issue.
You would be surprised, my friend.
I mean, maybe you're right. But you know, for some people, chargebacks are the scourge of their business, and you know, we obviously protect against those financially as well. But you know, you've got to curate that trust and safety strategy. I think one of the fundamental things you can do is put your T's and C's in front of that customer as well. And in your T's and C's, it says clearly you are forbidden from having a party, and if you do, you will be liable for damage. Like, you know, a couple of sentences. And again, apologies if I'm saying really obvious things, but I think that, and I would just stick that in front of them as soon as they book and say, you know, here's our pledge, here's our house rules, here's our T's and C's, and that orientates them. Because, you know, when it gets to the idea of paying out insurance and damage, the damage is already done. And as Carlos said, you know, the relationship with the building is probably ruined. So if you can prevent it, prevention is better than cure in this instance. And that is what we're talking about here, is making sure that through that guest journey, yes, they feel important, yes, they feel loved and ready to come and stay, but also you're checking that you're happy that person is going to be a good guest. And you know, if something goes wrong, you need insurance at the other end too.
100%. I think having the T's and C's in front of them is very helpful. I think having the monitors inside the rooms is really, really helpful. It helped me personally a lot, because you know what's going on, you can tell, and so you can act quickly rather than, you know, find out on the checkout when all the damage has been already done.
Or not even the
having them-
checkout, or not even the checkout, but because you had a call from a neighbor, which is even worse.
100%. But let me tell you, if you don't get that call from the neighbors, sometimes neighbors help us. You know, when they call us, they actually protect us, because you can just go ahead and go there and sort things out. But if they never call, and then on the checkout you find the place is trashed, this is a tragedy, honestly. When it happens to someone who's merely trying to make money out of it, so they end up losing this much money. Maybe having them sign an actual agreement before coming in. But once you get the notification that there's something happening in your flat, what do you do? This is another question, especially for people who operate multiple units in multiple locations and far away from where they live. Say I got a notification saying the noise level is up, and I got that one time, and I called them, and they were like, "Yes, mate, we're having a party. Come join." and I honestly, I went there, and they were like, "No, we're not going out. Get the police for us." So these things happen, right? How can we protect ourselves, or how can we act once it happens? How can we try to the last inch to protect ourselves, or to the last minute? Maybe act immediately when we get it notified, either by the monitors or by the neighbors, was another form of monitors, or maybe send a security company, or have an agreement with the security company who covers this area, for example.
I think that is a really good idea. Before helping to create Superhog, as I mentioned, I was working for One Fine Stay, and One Fine Stay's biggest market for probably the whole time I was there was London, and we did have a sort of security company on the books that would go in, and someone wrote a protocol for how to stop a party. It was quite cool, actually. That you'll be unsurprised to know that was not my job. I was tucked up in bed whenever there was a party, and not doing that. But I think the first thing people said was go to the circuit board and switch the whole thing off.
Wow, that's a good idea.
That's a nice, that's a good idea.
Yeah, go to the mains and switch it off, and don't even confront them. Just stand in there and get your security team. Don't even talk to them. Security guys talk, you don't talk, but you turn the power off. And unfortunately, this sort of stuff happens,
In fact, just to mention, this is a service we provide in our flagship cities, right? We provide the full service in Barcelona, Madrid, and in Paris at the moment, and we want to scale that internationally. But yeah, that's part. We have a night agents team on field. If things get out of control, we support our property managers, sending those agents there. They are not security guys, they're concierge guys, night concierge guys, but they are very well educated on which are the rules. They explain, and we work based on agreed protocols with our property managers, with our customers. Depending on the decisions that they want us to make, we follow their instructions, and we do help them kick people out of the apartments the following day if they don't behave properly, because everything is triggered, everything is documented. We provide a report, and even some companies or some OTAs and platforms already are starting to recognize and accept noise monitoring reports as part of opening a case against a bad guest behavior. So the whole thing is improving. I think it's in the right direction. And I'm very optimistic. I know what Leo said, but I think that the industry is evolving. It's growing fast. It's maturing, and these kind of solutions are here to stay.
100%. The trouble with damage is it also affects the next stays in many ways. Basically, if you get someone who damaged your property, you'd also lose the time, right, until you fix things, until you.
But that's why sorry to interrupt, but that's why the key thing is anticipate instead of waiting until the damage is done, right? Because
but there's only so much anticipation that we can do, and you guys are specialized in this, and I will leave you to tell us more about what you do in a minute. And honestly, I'm really proud of where we got to as an industry in anticipating damage, and I think we really took it down. from years ago to this point, where the systems are detecting everything before it happening, basically. This is very good, and I think we eliminated a big part of the potential damage. But there's this still the 1 or 2%, which are really not much, and they don't happen to everyone. You might operate for years and not have one incident.
I think it's important to say, sorry to interrupt you, I think it's a really good point you're making. That's how professional property managers are curating their own trust and safety methods. That's exactly what we're saying, is like, and I'm sure all of you have your own techniques for catching the bad guests before they come, right? And let's remember that 2% can be accidental damage too, and you can't predict for that. You can't predict for somebody spilling. And so you're right, people can go their whole year without having a party, and that's excellent, right? And it's about curating a strategy that works for you, right? And is it, hold on, this property shouldn't go on booking.com because I've had a problem with it, or for this property we do a face-to-face check-in, whatever it is. People are doing that. And again, I think some of the tools that we've talked about, myself and Carlos especially, that we spend our days trying to troubleshoot and find solutions for, our property managers as well, when they're scaling and they become very time poor, because it's such a fascinating industry. You've got the ability to grow so quickly. It only seems to be going up and up and up. We had that bump in COVID, and now we're growing again. So often you're torn between what should take my time and what should I be automating. And technology is the quickest shortcut to that, isn't it? Because then you can remove yourself from the day-to-day. Because in an ideal world, you've got one property that you look after and you give it all of your time and attention. But this is business, so that isn't what happens. And you might have 50, you might have 500, right? So it's finding tools and techniques as you're scaling. I think it's really important.
100%.
And I'd like to just share a story. This is actually about accidental damage. And you're talking about, when you've got a booking, next day and things like that, when you have damage. So I was in London at the time. And because my properties were in Sydney, I would wake up in the morning and I would be finding out what was going on in Sydney that afternoon, evening. And I woke up to a message from my staff that the guest had broken the bed. The wooden slat on the edge was broken, timber shats all over the floor. And I had a guest arriving at 9 o'clock the next morning. And I'm in London. Do I buy a new bed? How do I buy a new bed? How do I get the old bed out? La, 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 la. Anyway, if you have damage like that, I can highly recommend, in Australia or in the UK, it's either called TaskRabbit or Airtasker. You put the job out there and you say, I put the job out in the afternoon or the evening, Sydney. I said, I need this job done. It needs to be finished by 8 o'clock in the morning because the guests were arriving at 9. And he was done, and he cleaned up and he tightened up all the other things of the bed. And it was like, God, wow. So that's my tip. If you do have it, because a lot of the damage is accidental and you might have a back-to-back. And this sort of thing can come in very, very handy. And then you charge the guest.
Yes, of course. And I agree, because, it's whether it's accidental or not, still damage, and there's still a guest coming, hopefully the very next day. And this guest expects clean walls and a functional bed and a toilet that works. So yes, we the TaskRabbit thing, I also agree, if you're short on time. But yeah, things happen. It's a business. I think we, as operators, we should account for this percentage of error that might happen. That includes, this error percentage should include damage, whether it's accidental or not. Just as a grocery shop would account for theft or expiry, expired products. So I think we should account for that in our calculations before we start the business anyway. And we should cover the 99% of the methods and ways out there to try and anticipate and protect ourselves against damage in all its shapes. But there's only so much that you can cover and eliminate. And hopefully this doesn't happen to any of us. I would like you now to tell us, each of the panelists, if I may, to tell us more about your companies, so we actually know what you offer and what you have to provide for this industry. Can we start with Carlos, please?
Yeah, sure. So at Room Monitor, we provide noise monitoring solutions, especially designed for short-term rentals, so that hosts can understand at any time what's going on in the apartment in terms of sound levels, right? And it's important to me always to point out that it's not just about damage protection. I already said that. It's more about like long-term sustainability and coexistence with the neighbors. So with our tools, you get a dashboard, and you just need to install a small device on the apartment, and you get to understand which are the sound levels all year round, right? You can get at the data at any time. You can receive reports, and it's completely privacy safe. We don't record anything. We just like monitor the intensity level. We don't measure like based on a sound threshold. So if a motorbike and you have the window open and a motorbike crosses the street, it won't trigger an alarm. The alarm is also triggered when there's like a constant pattern of sound increase, right? And this is the way you can really anticipate. There's this technology that is based on patterns, helps you anticipate issues. Then you have different solutions that you can add. You can have a solution designed for individual hosts where they manage everything. They just have the app and they deal with the interaction with the guest, etc. Or we have different solutions for property managers where we take care either via phone, by phone with our own night sales agents or night concierge agents. We are properly trained. Or even, as I said, on big cities like Barcelona, Madrid, in Paris, we have on-field people that can go and solve issues if those are getting out of control. And in any case, we send the report the following day to the property manager, so he's completely up to date on what happened. Neighbors are also provided with a hotline, so they can call us directly if there's something going on, and we can take care of that. We're trying to close the loop to make sure that the industry is sustainable for the long term. That was not short, but I think it was a good summary.
That was actually very nice. So it's not only the device; it's a whole package basically.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, you need to buy a device, and then you have a monthly subscription fee, which covers the real-time monitoring, 24/7, and all the dashboards with all the functionalities. You can put different noise sensitivities depending on the apartment, and well, it has many more functions or features. We can integrate with different PMS or channel managers, etc., etc. So we have
very nice. Very nice, Carlos. Thank you very much. Deborah, can you tell us about the guest inspector?
Sure. Well, the guest inspector is pretty much a mystery guest for your holiday rental business and property. So I look at everything from landing on your website, query, response time, search processes, the booking process, either on your own website or even booking through an OTA just to see what the process is like. I check pre-arrival emails, the check-in process, the stay, and it actually all started out as a mystery guest to inspect the property. So in terms of maintenance, right, you know, a basin isn't draining properly. That's really not a very nice experience for the guest when their toothpaste is sort of sitting in the sink, not draining. Or you have a shower and there's only one towel hook when there's a bathroom for 4 people, things like that. You know, who reports things like this to the owner or the manager? You know, it's not the cleaner who's going to point that out. And these sorts of little things can be that little, it's not a good guest experience. You know, it was a bit of a, I can't hang my towels. This place is looking like a campsite with wet towels hanging all over the place. So the guest inspector does everything from landing on your website through to staying at the property and beyond. You know, when do you ask for reviews and things like that. And also then as part of the guest inspector, what I would do is, when necessary, recommend software or a service that's going to streamline your business, make your life easier. And I thought, okay, I need to know about all the software in the industry. And I've been going to a lot of conferences and I know a lot of software, but I don't exactly know what they all do. So I decided to explore that. And I've got a podcast now, video podcast, called Techsplained, where I talk to various software companies, service providers, things like that, that actually just 10 to 15 minutes explain what do they do, what does it cost, who's the target, simple as that. So while you're having your morning coffee, you can learn about something else out there, and it could save you money, could be a big headache saved for you. So that's Techsplained with the guest inspector. I'm also working on the Book Direct show, co-director of the Book Direct show this year. So we'll be teaching all the different aspects of how to look after your business and things like that at the Book Direct show. So that's they're the pies that I have my fingers in right now.
Very nice. Thank you. This is where you got the idea of sending my own mom from, huh?
Well, look, your mom is going to tell you exactly what's wrong. She's going to be
the inspector.
Well,
But it's true. It's true. It's true. It's really true when you send someone to be the actual guest and to give you a real feedback based on their experience.
Yeah. Well, as Simon Lehman always said, you need to stay at your own holiday rentals. And that's what I was doing in Sydney. So because I was a digital nomad, when one was booked, I was moving to the other, and I had them all set up for me. And this is exactly what I want. And then I would go stay in another holiday rental and they didn't have what I wanted. And it's like, well, I mean, even I used 2 towels, and I went to one place and I had 1 towel hook. It was like, and this bathroom is for 4 people. Wait a second. So I started off, my first career was an interior designer. And my 2 favorite words are practicality and functionality. So when I stay at a holiday rental, this is the thing that comes to mind. And these are the little things that could just annoy a guest that we don't want. Putting another towel rail in the bathroom could be streamlining or smoothing out that guest experience. And I'm there to tell you that's all it takes.
100%. Thank you very much, Deborah. Very interesting and helpful. Audience are reminded that you can send your questions on the chat if you have any questions, so we can discuss after we finish with introducing the companies, or you can say it out loud if you would like afterwards. Last but not least, Leo, can you please tell us about Superhog?
I can. Anyone who wants to also learn one of Deborah's videos, episode 1, I think.
Yes, episode 1, Techsplained.
Check us out there. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh my.
Look at that. All mixes, doesn't it? I think if what Carlos does is how you can solve problems during a booking, I suppose we're the before and after. Which is why the 2 products would be quite cool side by side, actually, as a thought. Carlos, maybe we should talk after this.
Yeah.
We are providing for our clients, we're providing a guest screening process that kicks in after your guest is booked, but before they arrive. It's got 3 elements to it. One is we do a facial recognition and a passport cross-reference. So it's biometric matching to make sure that the ID is valid and it's in date and it belongs to that person. So it's the equivalent of somebody walking through an airport scanner, right? You put your passport on the metal tray and then you smile to the camera. We can tell you if that person is the person they are supposed to be, which really helps de-risk bookings from a fraud perspective. And also, as Deborah said earlier, from a deterrent perspective. So, the industry average is about 2% of bookings ending in some sort of claim. Our payout rate is 0.3%. So, a really huge reduction versus that 2%, 0.3%, 5-6-fold reduction there. The other element of the screening is that we run checks on people's mobile phones to make sure they're registered to the user, same with their email addresses, and then we put their name, their date of birth, and their address through our system to make sure they don't flag to our database as being a guest that's caused damage in a property. All of that takes about 60 seconds, right? Let's be fixated on guest experience and making sure we're not putting people off. 60 seconds, and then you get them to tick the terms and conditions to say that they won't cause damage in a property. They could be your terms and conditions, they could be ours, they could be both. At that point then, definitively that you can trust this guest as much as you think you can trust anybody because they've gone through this process. And then if anything goes wrong during a booking, that's when Superhog's financial guarantees kick in and will pay for any damage in a property up to $5 million. So if our screening technology fails you, we'll pay for the damage. Or if it's accidental damage and it's unforeseen damage that can happen anyway, our insurance element of what we do will kick in. That includes a guarantee against fraud and chargebacks. That also includes a virtual security deposit. So if you want to, you can stop taking a security deposit and we'll protect you for that small damage amount as well, which hopefully gives your guest a really good reason to want to go through the screening, because by taking their photo and uploading their passport, you're then not going to ask them for a security deposit. Now, that's something you can choose to include or not include. But essentially, what we're doing is we're answering 3 questions simultaneously here: is who is this person? Can I trust them? And if we've said yes, you know they've been screened. And what happens if something goes wrong? Well, we'll pay for it. We'll also try and get money from the guest directly, which we're very good at doing, because why wouldn't they when they've gone through our screening system? So we're able to get guests to pay you directly in about 50% of cases. But the other 50%, they end up being paid for using the Superhog guarantee. So like I say, we really do see ourselves as the before, trying to prevent stuff, and then the after, cleaning stuff up. Really the vast majority of bookings are completely safe, right? So we're just basically, I kind of like this description. It's a bit lame maybe, but like when you go bowling and you're not very good and you just put the bumpers up. All we're doing is we're just providing some bumpers, because the vast majority of people are going straight down the lane, but it's just making sure that if there's any problems with that small edge cases and guests who you're not sure about, you can take the booking with confidence, right? And I know a lot of people use a minimum age as a way to filter people out. We don't really like that, because we think bad guests can be any age. We'd rather actually use a bit of technology to stop that. And also as well, it isn't a flawless system. I think we're acknowledging that problems can happen anyway. And that's why, to go alongside the screening, there is the financial protections that I've mentioned.
I also think in terms of the guest experience, taking a security deposit, it can be a headache, depending on what your process is in your booking process. Getting out your credit card and paying, or freezing money, or this or that. This is actually using Superhog is actually eliminating a step in the process of the booking for the guest. So that's nice. I mean, you would not believe, but in the holiday rental that I was in now, I had to fill in a form and give my credit card number for the security deposit. I was like, wait a second. Wow.
But I get it, because it's back to this. It's back to this. What do we call it? Paradox or dilemma? I don't know how best to describe. But you need to also protect your properties and your host, don't you? So you find yourself doing things like, well, let's take their security card. Let's take a security deposit. Let's hold money on a credit card. And then the guest on the other side is going, I hate this. I don't want a security hold. And then, so if we can provide you with some tools to mean that you don't need that because you've got Superhog covering it, it might be beneficial to you. But it's all got to be part of that wider strategy, understanding who your guests are and knowing how you can trust them or not, because ultimately that's what's going to make them rebook as well, isn't it? It's like you want to give them an amazing experience, and so it's got to be carrot and stick, right? And Deborah's focused more on the carrot, and maybe I'm focusing more on the stick. But the whole thing has to be considered in your strategy. So you're sending them nice videos, you're welcoming them personally, and you're also asking them to jump through some hoops for you so you can get more comfortable.
100%. I'm truly amazed, Leo. It's really a very, 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 very nice solution. I think you guys are the answer, Carlos, Deborah, and Leo. To all our questions. Honestly, I'll be reaching out myself tomorrow, hopefully, to all 3 of you.
That's good.
Honestly, it's really good stuff. And I saw a question coming in saying, asking Carlos if you deliver to the UK. Carlos answered and said, yes, we do. And they asked about the prices. Carlos also said you can visit their website, Room Monitor. That's 1M, roommonitor.com, where you can find prices and all needed information. Right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
And okay, Carlos, I'll have to get you on Textplained. I'll organize a time to get you on Textplained.
Okay, cool. That's good.
All right. So I truly think technology is changing the game. I think we all think that. Honestly, if you're an operator, you wouldn't be able to tell until you try it. And I'm saying this out of my own experience. I've been vouching for Zeevou for a very long time. I've been speaking on Zeevou, and I've been part of Zeevou myself ever since the launch of Zeevou. When I left Zeevou a year ago, I started operating and I didn't use Zeevou for different reasons. I also wanted to try what's out there, and to be able to truly assess, not to take a biased answer, because I have a spot for Zeevou in my heart, of course. Just as any other technology out there, if you try to go solo or to go classic way, book and pen and paper, you wouldn't appreciate a PMS or a channel manager until you use one. I think it's almost the same with your tools as well. And this is what happened to me. I tried a couple of other tools, and when I finally made up my mind and said, let me go back to Zeevou, I honestly felt this huge difference where I was like, okay, what have I done to myself? And I'm not just saying this because they let me host this or they asked me to host this. This is true. We have moved very recently to Zeevou. We're still onboarding, but when I was playing around with the system, I was reminded of how well it worked, and as well, I was reminded of all the tools and the different softwares that it integrates with, such as yours. And it's really they come in very handy for professional hosts. And I think if you calculate the costs, a lot of people, or too many people, when you tell them about these solutions, they say, "Oh, this is too much. I'm not going to pay for that." Don't pay for that, man. Just include it in your price tag. Include it in your figures. Include it in your account. You cannot move forward without a PMS or a channel manager. You cannot move forward without insurance. You cannot move forward nowadays without monitors. It's honestly very much needed if you want to expand, if you want to grow and get bigger and beyond the 5 units that you're managing or the 10 units that you're managing. If you want to succeed and exceed and go the extra mile and reach a much bigger portfolio, you must look into technology and automation. This is the only answer out there. Take it from people who tried everything else. And honestly, technology comes in very handy. With that being said, I want to go to questions. If anyone has a question, please text them on the chat now, or you can speak up if you want. Lynn is asking, what options do I have if a guest doesn't complete the Superhog verification? I have recently joined and have quite a few who haven't. Leo.
It's a good question, Lynn. I think most important is making people as aware as possible in the pre-arrival areas of your listing, so that you can really tell who's a problem guest who's just having a go versus someone who is genuinely not comfortable sharing their details. And then it's kind of a judgment call on your side. We actually have sort of backup insurance policies that you could buy from us, sort of a home insurance type product that might be applicable. But I would actually say that more my advice would be to actually say no to those guests if it's something that's happening in a repeated way, because the vast majority of people go through the software without having a problem with it. Now, it might be that specifically for your area and the type of bookings you take, maybe there's something in the messaging that we can work on with you to make people feel more comfortable, or you can play up, the idea that they're not going to be asked to put down a security deposit, and that's a really important element of it too. Or like I say, we can put some sort of backup policy in place for you. But for me, I am suspicious that when people are saying they don't want to go through it, I think it's more the fact that they're trying to avoid going through it, and they're going to be the troublemakers or the potentially difficult guests. It's hard, isn't it?
100%. It's your tolerance. I think, Lynn, you shouldn't allow them to get away with it. They should complete the verification, or else they don't get the accommodation. No.
Yeah. And it's just about finding that approach that works for you, isn't it, Lynn? And we can maybe have a call separately as well, and we can go through some techniques for it, because for sure, you should be it's possible to get 99.9% of people through it first time, and then making sure that people know, well, look, because if it's on the listing that it's going to happen as well, people can't argue with it. Look, it says here we work with a third-party verifier, Superhog. they're gonna verify your identity. Then someone knows that that's part of the course for making a booking with you. The great thing about that is, though, if you have it on there on your listings, which I'm sure you do, and we can work on the wording a bit, it should, generally speaking, put off a lot of people who do have criminal, illegal, premeditated damage on their mind, or stag do's, because they just don't even want to go through it. And that I think is where you see the bulk of that reduction in damage claims is from the people who don't even enter the system. That's us doing our work just by having a sentence about us. That doesn't mean just write a sentence about us. You should definitely use us too, but that's certainly a good way of reducing your problems up front, I think.
100%. All right. If anyone else has a question, please feel free to go ahead. If not, this has been very beneficial and informative for myself, and I'm sure and I hope for everyone else. It's been a pleasure hosting this and getting to know you guys, Leo, Carlos, and Deborah. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you. I would like to thank also Zivu for hosting this. Renee says the discussion was really helpful. Thank you, Renee. I agree. And I thank Zivu for putting this together. It's been really great. Carlos, thank you very much. Deborah and Leo and everyone else, thank you for joining us. Have a good rest of the evening.